I'm out here right now fishing one of my favorite ponds, place I usually fish, and I'm taking in kind of what the weather's like right now, and what the water temp is like, and just kind of what things are going on in the lakes. I haven't been fishing a lot for a while, and I thought, since I'm probably not going to catch anything right now, the lake's about 20% frozen. Water temps are probably in the low 30s. And when temps are in the low 30s, the water temps in the low 30s, you either have to have a boat or fish a lake that has really deep ledges, really good looking points and stuff like that. Otherwise, you're going to fish these 5-10 foot areas. You might as well just pack up and go home if you can't reach any of those 15, 16, 30, 20 plus areas. And right now I'm just messing around. I really want to stop and share with you guys some of my favorite winter techniques. I'm just going to go in order from late fall to late winter. Last year was a great year as far as winter fishing goes. I started off November fishing the lipless crankbait, burning lipless crankbait and dying vegetation, hydrilla, stocks of cattails that sat in deeper water, and I'd throw it as close as I could to that cover and burn it out of there, and it was really successful. And as the weather started to get colder, I'd switch to the shaky head and throw that in 10 to 15 feet of water. And a lot of people like to fish the shaky head around docks and rock areas. I was throwing it straight into the vegetation and pulling it out of the vegetation. That can be risky in a case that you're going to get a lot of hang-ups and snags and stuff like that, but you're also getting where those fish are. And that lasted for a while, throwing the June bug colored shaky heads. I liked the lighter weights for the shaky heads just because it sat right on top of the vegetation and going through and getting hung up. Then I would also switch to the jigs, and I'd throw the jigs around points, and I'd throw it in about 30 to 20 feet of water. I got really deep with the jigs mainly because you just have to locate those fish as it starts getting colder and colder. They're going to start moving down. People say, oh, they're going to be suspended for most of the time. Yeah, you're gonna see some fish suspending, feeding on those bait fish, but there are also going to be some fish relating to the bottom as well, and stocking up with some of those crawdads before the crawdads start to go into hibernation phases and get into the rocks and burrow into there. And fish are just feeding on whatever they can possibly find before it starts getting too cold. So the jigs really do work good, mid to late November, and then once early December comes around, I immediately tie on the lipless crankbaits, and I tie on the Norman's middle lens and stuff like that in brighter colors. I always found that the yellows, blues, and whites were the better colors for the at least the northwestern area, midwestern area that we're in right now, and that I usually fish. So I found that those really did work probably the best. I'd throw the lipless crankbaits and the deep diving crankbaits around rocky walls, and I found that the fish started to move up a little bit closer before things started to freeze, and I was pulling them out of 10 or less feet of water. Honestly, I'd have some fish come up and hit right at the boat, and that's what sometimes you'll find is those fish are so aggressive that they'll basically take any opportunity of a crankbait if you're burning it or reeling it really fast around their faces and stuff like that, and they'll slam it. They can be really aggressive, especially as things start to really cool down and get cold. And the water temperatures around that time were probably in the low 50s to high 40s, so you're still talking pretty cold weather. And eventually, when the edges of the water started to freeze, I would switch to the drop shot, suspending jerk bait, and even before that too, I'd fish the jerk bait too, and I'd move it really slowly. And that's when you really have to be careful. You just have to really take in how careful you're moving that lure, and how slow you're moving that lure, and giving those fish some time to hit. Because if you're really committed and want that winter bite to go on, you got to move that bait slowly, especially the jerk baits. Get 4 really quick pumps and just let it sit there for a really long time. And people are really anxious, especially with a day you're not really catching anything. A fish will come up and bump that jerk bait, swipe and miss the fish. That's because that fish is coming up and just bumping it. They're really, really, really finicky during the really late winter season months and stuff like that. And you have to just really let those fish hit it, maybe hit it twice because they could be bumping it, just to make sure it's food and it's safe to eat. And same goes for the drop shot as well. You're going to get a lot of panfish in the drop shot, which is going to happen at any time, but especially in the wintertime. I caught so many, crappie and white bass on the drop shot rather than some decent largemouth, but I would get the few of the better largemouth. So sticking to some of those same jigs, the same lures you fish in the summertime, but also consider moving those lures slowly, fishing it in deeper areas that don't seem like good spots, but just try it out. And fall and early winter are some of the best times to learn how to bass fish, and it really tests your strengths and weaknesses and as to what you can fish with and what you can't fish with. And that's kind of where I learned how to bass fish really good, is when fall and those seasons rolled in. So it's kind of what I have for you guys today. Remember, light lines, long rods because you want to cast very far, but very sensitive rods as well. 7'2" rods, stuff like that. 10-pound tests for casting setups, 12-pound tests for casting setups, and also 8-pound to 6-pound fluorocarbons and stuff like that if you're going to fish in clear water. Those are my tips for you guys today. Thanks for watching. If you guys want to check out more, go to www.fishingthemidwest.info. See you guys later.